Karen called cops to kick my wife out, didn't know she leads the state police force. The sun dipped low over Willow Creek, painting the cul-de-sac in hues of amber and regret. I stood on our porch, gripping the railing, my knuckles white as I watched Karen, our neighbor of 3 years, march across her pristine lawn. Her floral dress fluttered like a warning flag, her face twisted with righteous fury. She was on her phone, voice sharp enough to cut glass, demanding the police come immediately. My wife, Elena, stood calmly in our driveway, her arms crossed, her dark hair pulled into a tight bun. She wore her state police uniform, the badge gleaming like a silent rebuke. Karen didn't know who she was dealing with. Not yet. Karen had always been the self-appointed queen of Willow Creek. She patrolled the neighborhood like a hawk, her eyes darting for any infraction: a car parked an inch too close to her curb, a dog barking a second too long. Elena and I had moved here seeking peace after years of city chaos. I'm a high school teacher, quiet by nature, content to let Elena's strength anchor us. She was the rock, always steady, always kind. But Karen saw Elena's confidence as a threat. A woman in uniform, leading with quiet authority, didn't fit Karen's vision of suburban order. The trouble started over a flower bed. Elena had planted roses along our fence, deep red, vibrant, a tribute to her late mother. Karen claimed they encroached on her property line by half an inch. She'd sent us letters, left voicemails, even posted passive-aggressive notes on the neighborhood app. Elena, ever the diplomat, offered to replant them. Karen refused. "It's the principle," she'd snapped, her voice dripping with entitlement. That morning, she'd escalated. She'd called the cops, claiming Elena was trespassing by tending her own garden. I watched Karen now, her phone pressed to her ear, gesturing wildly. "Yes, officer. She's refusing to leave. She's causing a disturbance." Her voice carried, drawing neighbors to their windows. Mrs. Patel peeked from her curtains, and old Mr. Thompson shuffled onto his porch, leaning on his cane. I wanted to shout, to tell Karen to back off, but Elena caught my eye and shook her head. She was in control. Always was. The patrol car arrived, lights flashing but silent. 2 officers stepped out, young, unsure, their hands resting on their belts. Karen rushed toward them, her voice climbing. "That's her. She's the one. Get her off my property." The officers glanced at Elena, then froze. One of them, a rookie named Daniels, widened his eyes. "Captain Alvarez?" he stammered. Karen blinked, confused. "Captain? No. She's just some woman who thinks she owns the street." Elena stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "I'm Captain Elena Alvarez, State Police. This is my home. Those are my roses. I'd like to know why you're accusing me of trespassing on my own property." The air shifted. Karen's face drained of color, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The officers exchanged glances, clearly caught off guard. Daniels coughed, suppressing a grin. "Ma'am," he said to Karen, "are you sure you want to file a complaint against Captain Alvarez?" Karen sputtered, her confidence crumbling. I didn't know, I just thought." Her voice trailed off as the reality sank in. Elena wasn't just a neighbor. She was the highest-ranking officer in the state, a woman who'd climbed through decades of grit and sacrifice to lead with integrity. Karen had called the cops on the one person they answered to. But then came the twist I hadn't seen coming. Mrs. Patel, the quiet widow who rarely spoke, stepped forward from her porch. Her hands trembled, but her voice was steady. "Karen, you've done this before," she said, her accent thick but clear. "Last year, you called the police on my grandson for skateboarding. You said he was dangerous. He was 12. The crowd murmured, heads turning. Mrs. Patel's eyes burned with a fire I'd never seen. "You pick fights to feel powerful, but you don't see the cost. You don't see the fear you cause." Karen flinched, her bravado gone. I realized then that this wasn't just about Elena. Karen's reign of petty complaints had left scars across the neighborhood. Silent wounds no one had dared voice until now. Mrs. Patel's words hung heavy, a mirror held up to Karen's cruelty. Elena spoke again, her voice softer now, almost pitying. Karen, I'm not here to fight. I'm here to live, to build a home with my husband, to plant roses for my mother. If you have an issue, talk to me, not the police. Karen's eyes darted to the neighbors, their stares pinning her in place. She muttered something incoherent, then turned and fled into her house, the door slamming behind her. The officers tipped their hats to Elena, climbed into their car, and drove off. The crowd dispersed, whispering, but Mrs. Patel lingered. She touched Elena's arm, a silent thank you, before returning to her home. That night, Elena and I sat on our porch, the roses glowing faintly under the moonlight. I expected her to be triumphant, but her face was heavy with sorrow. She's not evil, Elena said quietly. She's just lost. People like Karen, they're scared of losing control, so they lash out. I nodded, but my heart ached. Karen's actions had stirred something deep, a reminder of how quickly judgment could fracture a community. Elena had won, but at what cost? The neighborhood would never look at Karen the same, and she'd never look at herself without seeing her own mistake. The next morning, I found a note slipped under our door. It was from Karen, scrawled in shaky handwriting. I'm sorry, it read. I didn't know. I'll leave the roses alone. It wasn't much, but it was something. Elena read it, sighed, and tucked it away. Maybe she'll change, she said. But her voice held no conviction. The roses stayed. Karen kept her distance. But the tension lingered, a quiet fracture in the heart of Willow Creek. Elena went back to leading the state police, her strength unshaken. I went back to teaching, trying to instill kindness in my students, hoping it might ripple outward. But I couldn't shake the bitterness of it all, how one woman's fear had turned a garden into a battlefield. How a community had stood silent until it was almost too late. What do you think? Where does justice lie when fear and power clash in a community?